Hey, it's me, Julie, Fei-Fan Balzer, and I am here with the very talented and my absolute selfie twin, Flaum. Now, May and I have known each other for a long time, actually. Came up together in the scrapbooking industry and sort of morphed into the different things that we do now. Now, May, you do so many different kinds of art, really. So do you want to take people through a little bit of the variety that you do?
Sure. So, hi, and I'm so excited to be here and be a part of this. What do I not do might be the shorter list. So, I like to sew. I dabble in sewing. I say I dabble in sewing because I'm not a big fan of patterns and long, difficult projects, but I love sewing machine and hand sewing. I love embroidery, cross stitching, scrapbooking, card making, art journaling, jewelry making. I mean, we can keep going probably if we keep playing in here.
Well, I
I
was
was
gonna
just
say,
playing with some painting and canvas just
kind of a fun
yesterday.
area that I know you've gotten into, which is a little bit different, is cosplay, right? You've done some interesting stuff.
I have for attending conventions or for Halloween type things. I love costume making is a lot of fun.
And a lot of work. Oh my gosh.
Depending on who we're trying to be. Yes.
Well, the thing that's so interesting to me about cosplay that I don't think people always realize is that it ends up involving so many artistic disciplines, right? Because there's often like painting, embroidery, molding, mold making, and it just kind of goes on and on from there.
It does, and it depends on, what is the character you're trying to be, because some of these characters, the sewing machine gets involved. Some of them, there are heat tools and thermoplastics and stencils, and I mean, paints, spray paints. I mean, you name it, it just depends. And it's very interesting to me as well, looking at people who get very intricate with it, that they can recreate a cartoon in
Yes.
real life. They can
Yes.
take something that's a cartoon that's just fiction and someone's drawing, and they can turn it into something that's real. That always just blows me away.
People's imaginations. I mean, I think it's that thing where, I have always been interested in making things because it's like I have this idea in my mind. I want to see if I can get it out with my hands, right? But there are some people who I feel like I never actually sort of exactly hit what I was intending. And there's some people who I feel like do. They're like, this is what it's going to be. And it is. And that to me is amazing. It's like calling your shot.
You know what? I'm not very good at calling my shot. It usually tends to go in a different direction, but not necessarily in a bad way, because I'm always, even if it's a flop, I'm always learning from it. I'm always getting new ideas. There's always something to be had there. And sometimes it ends up better than what I
Now,
thought I was
I
going to
agree
do.
with that. And before we actually turned on the recording, you and I were talking about something that is a teaching philosophy of yours that I wholeheartedly agree with. And I was wondering if you would talk to us a little bit about the idea of working with whatever you have.
Yes. So, yeah, we were just talking about that because as I'm preparing my class for this, I'm also looking around and looking for alternatives. So, one of the big things that I find, I have plenty of supplies in here. I mean, you're only seeing a small glimpse. There are plenty of supplies in here to play with. And it can be very tempting to run out to the store or get the latest thing or add something else. And I really have been challenging myself to look around the room and see what do I have that could work in a similar way or create a similar effect. No, I don't have this fabric or this bead or this glue, but do I have something that I could get either a similar effect, or do I find a supply that kind of reminds me of this and I don't use it, but I should use it? And we can kind of go on a side trek, right? A side quest to play with it, to use it, to do something over there.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you know this, but part of the Artful Holiday class that you're teaching up as a part of is on Wednesdays. I take some ideas from the previous week's lesson and I sort of mix them up, mash them together. Do you know what I mean? To come out with something new or use substitute supply or move something over. Because I think to me, like, part of the wonderful thing about taking classes is not just that you learn to make a project or get a technique or a idea. It's that you get something to put in your toolbox and then you get to decide sort of how to mix those tools around when you actually want to make some kind of art.
I absolutely love it and couldn't agree more. And I find that a lot when I take classes. Sometimes, even in the middle of the project, I will realize this exact project isn't for me. However, I just learned these ideas from the instructor, or this instructor has inspired me in these ways. And I have learned all of these things that I can now take and go and make on my own or adjust to fit what I do or fit what I need.
So, speaking of things that you do, so a fun fact about you that people may not know, they may or may not know, is that you are a super foodie and you have raised two little foodies as well. And well, I've been thinking a lot how like there is something about like loving food and fine dining, but like you don't actually go home and cook like that necessarily, but you do take ideas from there, right?
Yes.
And so I was wondering if you find that there's any sort of similarity in your love for, food and fine dining and all that kind of stuff and sort of the way that you approach some craft stuff, because I think there's some symbiosis there.
You know what? I think you're right. Because I have that love of food and I have that love of let's eat all the different things, try all the
Mhm.
things. There's a very, very short list of no's, and it's all things I've tried before and I just didn't happen to care for. And the same does go for my crafting. And I think you're right that it's a curiosity
Yes.
and a desire to have new experiences and look at things from different perspectives, from different cultures, and an ever always I'm always a student. I'm
Yeah.
always wanting to learn and grow and just experience everything.
Yeah, and being open to like new combinations, different ways of
Yes.
experiencing something. I mean, one of the things I know from having worked with you before on projects and been there when you're teaching and stuff is that you have a really improvisational method of working, which is not to say that you don't have an idea of how the project's going to turn out, but you embrace sort of what comes in at the moment and then you try to work with it.
I call it cultivated chaos because it does to the outside eye. It looks very chaotic and like there's no plan or no skill or everything's just kind of up in the air, but it's actually very carefully cultivated. And I as I've grown and learned as a crafter, as the decades have gone by, it feels weird to say that, but it's true. There's a lot of things that I just know that I can just kind of snap decision and move on and change direction and change lanes because I've had so many fails. Wonderful, beautiful. I embrace all of the failing because it's what gets you to the next place.
100%. Failure is
Fall
the
down,
ladder to success.
make a mess, make really ugly stuff. Sometimes I will come in here and sit down and say, what's the ugliest thing if I'm stuck? I will reverse and say, what is the ugliest thing I could create? What is the most horrible, ugliest? And maybe it's in my art journal, or maybe it's a scrapbook page, or I mean, just something. Or I'll play with beads because I can always unstring them. What's the ugliest combination I can think of? And sometimes that will, in a kind of a backwards way, reset my brain and get the creativity rolling again because I'm being creative. I'm trying to think of the backwards way of doing things. And then a lot of times that just kind of ends up getting it going again. And then
Yeah.
everything's great and flowing, and we're doing all kinds of fun stuff once again.
Well, I think sometimes when you try to make something really beautiful, then you're sort of inevitably disappointed because it can't live up to your fantasy. But if you start out for ugly, if you start out for terrible, if you start out for the worst thing ever, chances are you're not going to get there either. And you end up finding something sort of new and interesting on the way. I want to talk.
It's absolutely true. And if I ever sometimes I'll teach art journaling workshops. And when I do, if I have somebody that's like, like having the pause, like they can't quite put their pen to paper, I go over and I splash paint on their page and I go, there, I messed it up. Now you're done. Just play.
Do they
There.
freak out?
Sometimes, but generally speaking, if there's a freak out, it's then, well, oh, she's right. The blank page is ruined. It's not going to ever be what I thought. So now I might as well just play and have fun and relax.
This is sometimes
Whatever
why
it takes to get to the relax.
I have to start on page 2 sometimes of my journal because if I start on page 1, it's not good. My
That
brain
is a
just
all of my page ones are blank.
really?
I don't ever start there. I can't.
Well, there you go.
So
It's
just
like
turn the
teaching it.
page. Let it go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about an interesting four-letter word that you mentioned,
Ooh.
which is you refer to yourself, and I think all your social media handles and stuff are this way, but you refer to yourself as a crafter. So the four-letter word is craft. Now we talk a lot about, are you an artist, are you a crafter, doesn't matter. And so I'm pretty sure you have some strong thoughts on the topic.
You know what? My thought is, what makes you happy? What word is it that in your head, in your mind, makes you think, yeah? And I always just often I just say I make stuff. I
Mhm.
make stuff. I sometimes maybe it looks a little more what we would I mean, depends on the beholder too. There are some who will say, I'll make something and someone will say, "Oh, that's a craft." And the next person could walk up and say, "That's art. It should be in a museum." So I'm very relaxed about whatever anyone wanted to label something.
Mhm.
I just like to make things and I like to play.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, as they say, there's art and craft and art, and I think
There
it's
it is.
also true that not everybody has the same taste. It's one of the most wonderful things about making things is that you get to make things the way that you want, you know?
There is, and I remember being in Paris and going to the Louvre, and there are items in there that are ancient that at the time the person would have been making a craft. They were crafting a tapestry. They were crafting a ceramic pot to prepare food in. It was not an art in the sense that it was not made to be put on display, but now it's art.
Mhm.
And it is, and it's beautiful. So I love that the craft and art, the art and craft. It is.
It's true. And so it's the same as like, and I think this also for me, it becomes a big deal in terms of I think what you said about people feeling empowered and feeling like they own the word. So a lot of people feel somehow they don't deserve to call themselves an artist, or they feel mad about being called a crafter. So it kind of goes both ways, right? Liking, hating, whatever it is. And so I think the most important thing to me is for people to feel like they can call themselves whatever they want, but you know what? Color mixing, the rules are the same whether you're an artist or a crafter. You've still got the good professional golden paints in your studio, whether you're an artist or a crafter. I'm still using my washi tape. Do you know what I mean? Whether I consider myself a fine artist or whether I consider myself a crafter.
That's like right up
Yeah,
there.
and it's like even if you go to like contemporary art museums all the time, you see people using what would be considered craft materials to make what is fine art. It's the way that they think about it, it's the intellectual part that they add to it. So I think again and again, it's really about how you define yourself. And I think you're so friendly. And one of the things is the name that you use on social media is Craft with May. And it makes so much sense because I feel like when I think of you, not that you're a brand, but when I think of you as a brand, I do think of that kind of very friendly, like, come make it with me and I will help you along the way.
And that's exactly why that's the name. It really is. I've looked at changing it to Flaum Designs, which is my technical legal brand name, or
Mhm.
something else, and I just can't because that's not. It's Craft with May. Come on over and let's make some stuff and have some fun. And we'll teach each other things, we'll learn, we'll support each other, but it is a very friendly place. So it delights me that that's how you see it too.
Well, of course. And so, speaking of making things, I know you haven't finished your project for the Artful Holiday class quite yet. We're early yet when we're recording this, but can you give us a hint about the holiday you picked and sort of the direction you're heading in?
So I picked Halloween because I never let myself really craft for Halloween, and I'm not sure why because I love it. I love spooky stuff. I love all of the different like the textures and the colors and the materials you think of for Halloween. So I picked it for that reason. And our project, we're going to be working with UV resin, and there will be workarounds. So if you're watching this and thinking, I don't have that, I don't know if I want to get it, relax. We're going to have workarounds too. We're going to be working with UV resin and we're going to be making jewelry. And because it's me and I can't help myself, there will be some variations as well on some thoughts on different holidays that the project would could be substituted in for or changed up with a few different changes. So yeah, I'm packing it in right now. I have to stop writing and sketching and prototyping and have to actually commit now because, and this happens sometimes, I'm having too much fun to make a decision. I didn't want to make a decision yet. I'm just having too much fun playing with all the stuff and letting the ideas flow, which we all know if you're in that zone, let it ride, go ahead, enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is sometimes I really believe this, I don't ever think that your first idea is your best idea. And so that's why, like, sometimes the prototyping and the process of playing is so important because something happens, a mistake, a terrible tragedy, a fail happens in the middle of that attempt. And you go, oh my gosh, that first idea was so stupid. This new idea is even better. And it's like behind that idea is an even better idea. And you keep sort of peeling away. So I think that play process, which sometimes feels like procrastinating, is actually extraordinarily important.
Oh, I do too, which is why, especially if I'm ever going to teach a class, that's step one. Just go and play and see what shakes out and what really is there versus what I thought in my head was the lesson.
So I want to ask you a question, which I've asked everyone because I'm curious. So when I invited you to teach for the Artful Holiday, was your first response, oh, I don't really do holidays, or was it like, yay, holidays?
Oh, it was totally yay. It was totally yay. I love the idea of combining art and creating with holidays. I think there's so many opportunities for creative expression, and just from what the little bits that I know and seeing what people have posted about for the instructors, these are going to be ideas that go and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So these are going to be lessons and ideas and tutorial education content that you're going to learn it in this way, and then you're going to be able to take it further, which I cannot wait to see what everyone starts doing.
Yeah, it really feels to me like a taster class,
Yes.
which you're really getting like a little hint of lots of different people and sort of what they do. I tried really hard to get a diverse group of people, like to have some serious printmakers, people who are absolutely quilters and sewers, people who just do, gel template printing and like whatever it is, so that we really had a crazy range. And again, I know that you are kind of, I'm going to use the word, I don't think it's a negative, but kind of a dilettante like me, where you like to do everything,
Mm-hmm.
that I think there are a lot of people like us. And so I wanted to make sure that there was a class that was really giving you a little bit of everything.
And when you approached me, you had suggested basically the topic of
Mm-hmm.
not the holiday, but the topic of what we're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting here at the time as the email came in, I'm sitting here playing with those materials, and I'm like, aha, she noticed what I'm having the most fun with at this exact moment. This is the thing I'm having the most fun with. And she noticed and she wants a class on it. Sold. Let's do it.
That's awesome. I have to tell you, so this, can we just talk dirt for 1 second,
Oh,
which
sure.
is, I think something that's happened with Instagram, which I know we both use and love, is that it has lost its like in the moment. Like people share things that they made a month ago or 2 months ago, or you're making Christmas crafts like 8 months before Christmas, or do you know what I mean? And it has lost some of its spontaneity, or you're not really showing like the part where you're in the middle of a project because it has to be sort of more finished and this and that. And so it's lost kind of like that connection with what people are in right now. That said, there are some people, like I think you do a mix of those kind of like
I
college
do.
posts and things that are in the moment. And so what's so interesting to me is I remember talking to a Wendy Solganak. I don't know if you know her. I'm probably saying her last name wrong. She does the Willa Journals classes, but she was saying that like she loves Instagram in like a serious way. And she thinks that the reason she's developed such a big following is because she is so genuinely like enthusiastic and excited about stuff, and it shows through the posts. And I've been thinking about that because I do think it's true. And I think that you were posting about this mystery topic that I'm not telling anybody what it is, but if they look at your Instagram, they might know. Uh, and you were so genuinely like tricked out and like happy, excited about it.
Oh,
And
and
I
I
could
still am. Yeah.
feel it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that. So it was like the perfect combination of, there was spontaneity in terms of what you were working on in the moment, as well as just that enthusiasm. And I am so excited to see the video for your lesson.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's just the most. It's so much fun, and you know what? I'm excited to see all the lessons. To be honest, I think that each one is going to be bring so much and add to this, like you said, the taste. It's a, you know what, it's a tasting menu, Julie. You've
It
developed a
is.
tasting menu.
Oh my God, that's genius. I'm stealing that.
Yes,
So,
do.
so May, if people want to connect with you online, what's the best way for them to do that?
So the easiest thing to do is Craft with May. Website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. It's just Craft with May.
Awesome. Thanks so much, May, and I'll see you soon.
I can't wait. Thanks.